Imagine being at the center of a political and social whirlwind where a single decision can shape the fate of generations. And if you were the person with the power to save an innocent man or condemn him, knowing that your choice could trigger a revolution. This is the reality of Pontius Pilate, a Roman leader who faced one of the greatest moral dilemmas in history. Why did Pilate, a practical and rational Roman governor, wash his hands in front of the furious crowd? Was it out of cowardice, political pressure, or something deeper? Let's explore this question from a new perspective, connecting it to the challenges that leaders face even today. Jerusalem, a vibrant city but in constant tension, was a crossroads of cultures, religions, and conflicting powers. Under Roman rule, the city simmered with discontent. Governor Pontius Pilate, sent to maintain peace, faced a monumental task. Pilate was not a cruel or careless man, but someone deeply aware of his delicate position. Governing a province like Judea was a precarious balance between Roman authority and local religious sensitivities. He knew that a misstep could mean the destruction of his career, or even his life. Amidst this turbulent scenario, the figure of Jesus of Nazareth emerged. Not a warrior or a politician, but a simple man whose words had the power to calm emotional storms and challenge the powerful. Who was that man? A prophet, a revolutionary, or something much greater? Pilate, skeptical by nature, heard about Jesus through rumors. Some said he was a troublemaker, others described him as a peacemaker. Intrigued, the governor decided to observe him from a distance. He described Jesus as someone who exuded calm, with a presence so magnetic that even the cynics fell silent in his presence. One of the stories that caught Pilate's attention the most was Jesus' response to a tricky question. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar? Jesus, with serenity, answered, "Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." This answer, both simple and brilliant, earned Pilate's respect. It was not the answer of a revolutionary, but of a philosopher who understood the balance between the temporal and the eternal. Today, leaders around the world face similar pressures. How to balance justice with politics, how to decide between what is popular and what is right. The story of Pilate challenges us to reflect on our own decisions and responsibilities. Pontius Pilate was not just a man who succumbed to the pressure of the crowd. He was a symbol of something greater, the eternal struggle between duty and conscience, between power and morality. And just like Pilate, we are all confronted with decisive moments that shape who we are and the legacy we leave for the world. This is just the introduction to a story rich in details and meanings, a journey that connects the past to the present and challenges our notions of leadership, justice, and faith. What would you do in his place? Have you ever wondered how your choices today could impact the future? As we delve into the narrative of Pilate, perhaps we can find answers, or, who knows, new questions. Pilate arrived in Judea in 26 AD-C. Appointed by Emperor Tiberius as prefect and procurator of the province. His role was to maintain order in a region marked by constant uprisings and religious disputes. The mission was not simple. Jerusalem, a fervent religious center, was a powder keg ready to explode. Pilate was not just a governor, but also a strategist. He knew that his position depended on maintaining the balance between pleasing the emperor in Rome and appeasing the Jewish religious leaders. However, he soon realized that governing a people with such deeply rooted beliefs would require more than military force. It would require intelligence and often concessions. Pilate is portrayed as someone torn between Roman logic and Jewish spirituality, which he did not fully understand. He saw Jesus as a peaceful figure, someone whose words resonated wisdom, but also as a potential risk to political stability. This ambiguity reflects the challenges faced by contemporary leaders who need to balance ethical decisions with political interests. Just like Pilate, today's leaders face the dilemma of following their convictions or yielding to external pressures to maintain order and avoid conflicts. Described as a man with a serene appearance and a penetrating gaze, Jesus did not need to raise his voice to be heard. His words not only challenged religious traditions, but also offered hope in times of oppression. He taught about love for one's neighbor, forgiveness and humility, values that contrasted with the rigidity of the religious and political authorities. His followers saw him as the promised Messiah, while his opponents considered him a threat to the status quo. The impact of Jesus' words and actions transcends generations. In 2023, it is estimated that Christianity has more than 2.4 billion followers worldwide, making it the largest religion on the planet. This growth demonstrates the enduring power of the ideas that Jesus represented: the pursuit of justice, equality, and faith. At the same time, Jesus can be compared to modern leaders who inspire social change and challenge oppressive systems. Figures like Martin Luther King Jr. and Mahatma Gandhi based their movements on the philosophy of love and non-violence, principles deeply rooted in the teachings of Christ. In first-century Judea, the crowds played a decisive role. They not only followed religious leaders, but were also easily manipulable. The priests and Pharisees, fearing the loss of their influence, fueled fear and misinformation, leading the masses to demand the crucifixion of Jesus. This behavior resonates today, where the power of social media amplifies opinions, fuels polarization, and often encourages hasty judgments. Just as Pilate faced an emotionally charged crowd, modern leaders deal with the pressure of a connected and often ruthless society. The priests of the time used religious arguments to justify their position against Jesus, but the true motivation was political. They feared losing control over the people and being seen as irrelevant in the face of a new doctrine. This dynamic reflects contemporary disputes where religion and politics intertwine, shaping decisions and creating divisions. The use of religion as a tool of social control remains relevant, raising questions about how beliefs can be instrumentalized to serve particular interests. Just as the crowd influenced Pilate, today we are impacted by social media. Studies show that 62% of people in the US get news from social media, but 23% have admitted to sharing false information unknowingly. This reminds us of the role of the crowds in the narrative of Pilate and Jesus, and how hasty judgments can have irreversible consequences. Modern rulers face challenges similar to those of Pilate when trying to balance morality with political interests. Cases like the trial of Nelson Mandela and the conflicts in the Middle East reflect the complexity of decisions made under pressure. Jesus showed that faith can be a powerful force for social and personal change. Today, movements such as environmental activism and human rights protests are driven by ethical and spiritual values that echo the teachings of Christ. Pilate, Jesus, and the crowd are eternal archetypes. They represent divided leaders, persecuted visionaries, and manipulable societies, elements that continue to shape the world. If, at that time, the decisions made led to the crucifixion of an innocent, today we face similar dilemmas. The search for truth and justice continues to be a challenge, especially in times of misinformation and polarization. But, in light of this, a question remains. Are we prepared to act differently when confronted with moral dilemmas? The court, in chaos. That morning, on the morning of the trial, Pilate found himself before an agitated crowd. The religious leaders demanded immediate punishment, accusing Jesus of blasphemy and rebellion against Rome. The accusation of self-proclaiming himself as King of the Jews was serious, as it could be interpreted as a challenge to the emperor's authority. Pilate, however, did not find concrete evidence to justify a death sentence. Instead, he saw in Jesus a calm and serene man who remained steadfast even in the face of accusations. This attitude disarmed Pilate, who tried various strategies to free him, but each attempt only inflamed the crowd even more. The crowd, manipulated by the religious leaders, cried out for blood. Pilate knew that yielding to the pressure would be unjust, but he also understood that resisting could trigger an uprising. This dilemma is a classic example of how the fear of social collapse can lead leaders to compromise their principles. Modern studies on social psychology, such as Solomon Ash's conformity experiments in the 1950s, show how group pressure can influence individual decisions, even against rational judgment. This highlights that the behavior of the crowd in Jerusalem was not an isolated event, but a pattern that repeats throughout history. Desperate to avoid a revolt, Pilate resorted to a symbolic gesture. He washed his hands before the public, declaring himself innocent of Jesus' fate. This act, however, did not absolve him of responsibility. In Roman culture, symbolic gestures like the washing of hands represented purification or neutrality. However, history shows that neutrality in times of injustice can be as condemnable as the action itself. This gesture of Pilate remains a powerful symbol of moral evasion, widely discussed in political and social contexts to this day. Crucifixion was a brutal method used by the Roman Empire to punish criminals and dissidents. Designed to cause extreme pain and public humiliation, it was a demonstration of power and control. Jesus was forced to carry his cross through the streets of Jerusalem to Mount Golgotha, also known as the Place of the Skull. The journey, marked by insults and violence, symbolizes the physical and spiritual burden he carried, not just as an individual, but as a representative of all humanity. Recent archaeological studies show that crucifixion was, in fact, one of the most inhumane methods of execution ever recorded. Bones found in excavations show marks of nails and injuries consistent with historical accounts, validating the brutality of this practice. While some mocked, others watched with sorrow. Among them were Mary, the mother of Jesus, and his disciples, who saw in the crucifixion not the end, but the beginning of something greater. This division between disbelief and faith reflects the lasting impact of the event. For many, the death of Jesus symbolized defeat. For others, it was the fulfillment of a prophecy and the prelude to something extraordinary, just as Pilate faced a dilemma between yielding to popular pressure and maintaining his values. Modern leaders deal with similar challenges. Whether in politics or public administration, the temptation to avoid conflicts often leads to decisions that compromise justice. The crowds in Jesus' time were manipulated by fear and misinformation. Today, social media amplifies this dynamic, showing how rumors and fake news can influence collective behaviors. The story of Pilate warns us about the dangers of hasty decisions based on fleeting emotions. The crucifixion of Jesus transcends physical suffering. It symbolizes the human capacity to endure adversity and transform pain into hope. Leaders like Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King Jr. exemplify this transformation in modern times, facing persecution to promote lasting change. The trial and crucifixion of Jesus are not just historical events. They are mirrors reflecting eternal dilemmas about power, morality, and faith. The story of Pilate challenges us to examine our own choices. Do we yield to pressure or remain true to what we believe is right? As we look at today's world, marked by polarization and conflict, this narrative invites us to be more aware and courageous. The story does not end at the cross. It is just the beginning of a message that continues to shape generations. If you are enjoying this content and wish to continue this journey with us, Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapters of this exciting series. Thank you for following us up to this point. Did you know there were supernatural reports? Among the events described before and after the crucifixion, there are records of inexplicable phenomena, from the healing of the sick to the multiplication of loaves and fishes. The deeds attributed to Jesus intrigued both followers and opponents. One of the most impactful moments occurred after his death. The temple veil torn in two, an earthquake shaking the region, and even reports of the dead rising. For the believers, these occurrences represented the confirmation of divine power. For skeptics, they were symbols interpreted in light of intense emotions and collective fear. Contemporary researchers analyze these accounts in the light of science. Some argue that the mentioned earthquakes could be real records of seismic tremors that occurred in the region during the 1st century. Others interpret the phenomena as metaphors, suggesting that they symbolize the collapse of traditional religious structures and the emergence of a new faith. These different perspectives show how miracles still provoke debates today, dividing opinions between spiritual belief and rational interpretation. The most mysterious point of this narrative occurs on the 3rd day after Jesus' death. When some women went to the tomb to prepare the body, they found the stone removed and the place empty. This event has generated numerous interpretations over the centuries. For Christians, it was the definitive proof of Christ's divinity. For others, an allegory representing renewal and victory over death. The resurrection can also be seen as a metaphor for new beginnings. Just as social movements and historical figures have risen from persecutions and crises, the resurrection symbolizes the human capacity to transform pain into hope. After the crucifixion and the events related to the resurrection, the disciples spread Jesus' message throughout the known world. In less than 3 centuries, Christianity went from being a marginal sect to becoming the official religion of the Roman Empire, following the conversion of Emperor Constantine in 313 AD. Today, it is estimated that Christianity has 2.4 billion adherents, representing nearly 31% of the world's population. This influence has shaped laws, cultures, and values throughout history. While many see miracles and resurrection as fundamental elements of faith, others interpret them as symbols of inner transformation. This duality highlights the importance of dialogue between science and spirituality, showing how both can coexist in the search for answers. Just as the resurrection symbolized a new beginning, many people today seek new beginnings in moments of personal and social crisis. Movements of overcoming and resilience continue to find inspiration in this narrative. While science advances to explain natural phenomena, faith continues to offer comfort and meaning. Research shows that 84% of the world's population still identifies with some religion, highlighting the persistent role of spirituality in society. The story of Jesus reminds us that even in times of persecution and suffering, hope can prevail. Amidst conflicts, pandemics, and inequalities, this message resonates as an invitation to reflection and change. The narrative of the miracles and the resurrection of Jesus is not just an ancient story. It is a living legacy that challenges humanity to reflect on faith, transformation, and hope. Whether seen as a literal truth or a symbolic metaphor, this story continues to inspire billions of people around the world. Throughout this journey, we travel back in time to revisit the events that shaped the story of Jesus and his relationship with Pontius Pilate. We explored ethical dilemmas, miracles, and the resurrection, elements that have transcended the centuries and continue to impact lives. Now, we conclude with a reflection on the deeper meaning of this narrative and how it still engages with the challenges of the modern world. Just as Pilate faced a dilemma when choosing between justice and political stability, current leaders also encounter decisive moments. History reminds us that neutrality at times is not enough to avoid the consequences of actions or omissions. How many times in our own lives are we confronted with situations that require courage to defend what is right? Pilate's experience prompts us to reflect. Do we give in to pressure or stand firm in our principles? The resurrection of Jesus symbolizes renewal and overcoming, offering a beacon of hope even in the face of tragedies and losses. In modern times, where social crises and global challenges test humanity, this message continues to inspire the search for new beginnings and peaceful solutions. Studies show that individuals with spiritual beliefs tend to be more emotionally resilient. This data highlights the power of faith, not just as a religious system, but as a source of strength and direction in difficult times. Although Christianity was directly shaped by the events narrated, the values conveyed by Jesus, compassion, love for one's neighbor, and forgiveness, transcend religious boundaries. These virtues remain relevant, whether in combating intolerance, defending human rights, or building more just societies. Forgiveness as a tool for healing. Jesus forgave even those who condemned him. This act resonates as a powerful reminder that forgiveness is not a sign of weakness, but a form of personal liberation and social reconciliation. Modern movements, such as the reconciliation process in South Africa after apartheid, demonstrate how forgiveness can be used as a tool to overcome historical wounds and build bridges between deep divisions. How do we react when confronted with situations that test our integrity? What legacy do we want to leave for future generations? Are we willing to transform our pains and difficulties into opportunities for growth? These questions are invitations to think about how we can apply the lessons from this story in our daily lives, whether in relationships, professional decisions, or the impact we leave on the world around us. The story of Jesus and Pontius Pilate is not just an ancient account, it is a narrative that continues to resonate in human choices, internal battles, and quests for redemption. It reminds us that faith can be both a foundation and a transformative force, capable of guiding the world in times of darkness. The end of this journey is not the end, but a new beginning, an opportunity to question, reflect, and act with purpose. If you have followed along until now, thank you very much for dedicating your time to this deep and reflective analysis. If this story brought new perspectives or provoked important questions, share your thoughts in the comments. If you wish to continue exploring themes such as faith, history, and morality, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to not miss the next videos. Leave your like and share this content with friends who might also be interested in these reflections. Thank you for being with us. See you soon.